think it's just about time you realized it.
Boy, am I starved.
A typical loving wife.
Do you still remember Bewitched? The television show that captivated millions of viewers since 1964 and ushered in a mesmerizing era of supernatural entertainment on the small screen. Samantha Stephens, the beautiful witch, seemed to give up her magic to live as an ordinary wife, but in reality, she still had to use her magic to solve all sorts of everyday troubles. But behind that charming smile and sparkling magic lies a whole backstage world full of mystery and drama. Explosions on the set, Montgomery's pregnancies that had to be hidden through clever scripting, and the untold reasons why Dick York left the role of Darren, things the audience never knew. And can you believe it? Even the familiar theme song of Bewitched has a secret version that almost no one has ever heard. Let's explore 20 of the weirdest and most shocking facts about Bewitched. 20. Elizabeth Montgomery was actually pregnant 3 times during filming. During the filming of Bewitched, Elizabeth Montgomery was actually pregnant 3 times, and each time became a backstage crisis that the crew had to handle creatively. From the very first season, when Samantha had just become a Stephens bride, Montgomery was pregnant with her first child in real life. The producers panicked. If her growing belly was revealed, the story of a newlywed witch would turn into an ordinary family show. So the entire set had to get creative, using loose dresses, angled camera shots, and strategically placed furniture to hide her expanding belly. However, when Elizabeth became pregnant a second time, they realized they couldn't keep hiding it forever. Rather than avoiding it, the writers boldly incorporated real life into the story. Samantha became pregnant and gave birth to Tabitha, the little girl who quickly became a new spirit in Bewitched. The third pregnancy was also written directly into the plot, officially introducing Adam Stephens, the youngest member of the magical Stephens family. 19. Dick York's painful ordeal. Dick York, Samantha's devoted husband in Bewitched, paid the price for what seemed like a harmless accident with his career and life. In 1959, while filming They Came to Cordura, York suffered a severe back injury during a strenuous scene. The pain never went away, turning him into a hostage of painkillers. Therefore, when Dick filmed Bewitched in 1964, the crew even built a slanted wall so York could lean against it between scenes, hiding his unseen pain. But the pills, fatigue, and increasingly uncontrollable spasms made it unbearable. The climax came in 1969, when York suddenly collapsed on the set during season 5 of Bewitched, experiencing a seizure to the horror of his co-stars. That moment became the fateful reason he had to leave the role that had made him famous. His replacement, Dick Sargent, tried his best, but could not fill the void in the hearts of viewers. Yet, beyond the spotlight, York's life turned into a tragic ordeal. Losing his job, his health declining, he fell into poverty, even having to clean toilets to make ends meet. The man once beloved by millions became a shadow of himself, struggling with addiction and Hollywood's neglect. And still, amid those dark days, York founded the organisation Acting for Life to help the homeless, proof that his heart never stopped burning. 18. Season 7. Christmas episode written by Black high school students. During Christmas 1970, Bewitched released the special episode Sisters at Heart. The story begins with the innocent friendship between Tabitha Stephens and a black girl named Lisa Wilson. When teased by classmates that they couldn't be sisters because of their skin colour, Tabitha used magic to give both girls black and white spots on their faces, proving that sisterhood isn't limited by skin tone. Alongside this child-friendly story was an adult plotline. Mr. Brockway, a white businessman, refused to sign a $1 million contract with Darren because he mistakenly thought Darren had married a black woman. To teach Brockway a lesson, Samantha used magic to make him see everyone around, even himself, as black. Placing the racist man in the position he had long despised, the episode sent the message that injustice and prejudice collapse when we view others through our own lens. In terms of message, Sisters at Heart is one of the boldest Bewitched episodes, airing at a time when America was still deeply divided by race. What's remarkable is that the original script was not written by Hollywood writers, but by 22 black 10th grade students from Los Angeles. Elizabeth Montgomery and her husband, director William Asher, involved the entire class in production, turning a school story into a nationally televised episode. This made Sisters at Heart a unique creation, both an artistic work and a socially educational project. 17. The actress playing Gladys Kravitz kept her terminal illness secret on set. Alice Pierce, who portrayed the nosy neighbour Gladys Kravitz, often brought laughter to viewers with her charming, witty performance. But backstage lay a bitter truth few knew. Only months before taking the role, Pierce was diagnosed with late-stage ovarian cancer. Knowing her time was limited, she chose to keep it secret and continued working at full capacity to bring Gladys to life on television. Signs of her illness appeared as she grew thinner, but Pierce never complained. Instead, she poured all her energy into filming, making Gladys one of the most memorable supporting characters in the series. Her underdeveloped jaw from a childhood accident added to her unique appearance, shaping the quirky comedic style. A nosy, harsh neighbour constantly caught in chaotic situations, witnessing Samantha's magic. Ironically, as Bewitched became more famous, her illness quietly claimed her life. She passed away in March 1966 at only 48, leaving colleagues and fans in deep mourning. 2 months later, the Television Academy posthumously awarded her an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, a well-deserved but belated tribute to a talent gone too soon. After Pierce's death, the role of Gladys Kravitz was handed to Sandra Gould to continue the story arc. But for viewers, the original Gladys, the petite, resilient woman who brought laughter while silently battling illness, remains an unforgettable icon. Do you remember the image of Grandma Gladys? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 16. Real fire and explosions on set. In the middle of Season 7, a sudden fire broke out in the kitchen, the heart of the Stephens home on screen. The flames weren't huge, but enough to destroy part of the set that had been familiar to audiences for years. The crew faced an emergency, either slow production or rebuild the kitchen in record time. While viewers eagerly awaited the new season, the set was in chaos. The crew had to escape the studio, shoot outdoor scenes in Salem and other Massachusetts locations to buy time, while workers rushed to repair the set. Once rebuilt, the kitchen appeared completely new. A breakfast nook overlooking the backyard, wider walkways, even a side staircase to the second floor. Interiors, curtains and paint all changed, as if the Stephens home had been upgraded through an unintended magical intervention. Were you surprised by this transformation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Elizabeth Montgomery's nose twitch when casting magic. Even before Bewitched officially started filming, director William Asher noticed that whenever Montgomery felt impatient, nervous, or waiting for something, she would twitch her upper lip, naturally causing her nose to twitch slightly. According to Herbie J. Pilato in Twitch Upon a Star, The Bewitched Life and Career of Elizabeth Montgomery, Asher thought, this small gesture could become a signature sign for magic. So it was brought to the screen as a magical effect. Asher asked Montgomery to try the lip-nose movement before filming to see if it occurred naturally under pressure. At first, Montgomery denied it, claiming she didn't know she did it. But once, while drinking at a bar, she accidentally made the movement, and Asher immediately said, "That's it!" When Bewitched began, this twitch became the trigger for Samantha's magic. Early episodes clearly showed it in the opening sequence and various scenes. A slight lip movement followed by a nose twitch, accompanied by a soft xylophone sound, all enhancing the magical effect. While fans usually remember it as a nose twitch, in reality the upper lip moves first. causing the nose to follow. It's not the nose twitching independently. From then on, viewers remembered Samantha Stephens with the nose twitch as an inseparable part of her character. Wherever she appeared, baseball games, movie theatres, meeting fans, people would shout "Twitch" for her to perform the gesture. Montgomery once recalled that when watching Dodgers or Chicago Cubs games, fans shouted "Liz, twitch!" to grant magical luck, and sometimes they believed her twitching helped the team turn the game around. How do you feel about this fun habit? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 14. Directly inspired by two classic Hollywood masterpieces, I Married a Witch and Belle, Book and Candle. Before Samantha Stephens stepped onto the small screen and became a television icon in Bewitched, 1964, Hollywood had already worked its magic with beautiful witches in the 1940s and 1950s. Two films, I Married a Witch, 1942, and Belle, Book and Candle, 1958, laid the foundation for the witch falls for a mortal trope, proving that audiences were particularly captivated by the mix of supernatural, romance and everyday life. In I Married a Witch, Veronica Lake played Jennifer, a witch reborn from the 17th century, returning to torment the descendants of the man who condemned and burned her. But her revenge plan collapsed when she fell in love with that same eternal enemy. Lake's character was not only charming and wild, but also reflected a desire to break free from an imposed destiny, a theme far beyond the comedic setting. The film made waves at the time by combining screwball comedy with supernatural elements, opening a new branch for American cinema. Witches were no longer symbols of evil, but central characters in intimate love stories. 16 years later, Belle, Book and Candle brought this trope into the lively modern setting of Greenwich Village. Kim Novak played Gillian, a young woman running an antique shop, living in the mortal world but descended from a mischievous witch family. Her romance with Shep, James Stewart, presented a dilemma. Between true love and supernatural power, what would she choose? The film, also released by Columbia Pictures, bore many similarities to the later Bewitched. A woman who wants to fit in, yet remains bound by her magical heritage. It was the success of these two films that Sol Sachs, the creator of Bewitched, openly admitted directly influenced his conception of Samantha Stephens. Columbia Pictures, which owned both films as well as the production company behind Bewitched, already had a golden formula, combining romance, humour and mystical elements to captivate audiences. Instead of stopping at a single film story, they turned it into a television series lasting nearly a decade, revisiting the familiar yet ever-fresh conflicts between the magical and the mundane every week. Have you ever watched these two classic films? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 13. Dick York and Agnes Moorehead were close friends behind the scenes. On screen, the relationship between Endora and Darren was an uncompromising battle, a vicious mother-in-law constantly finding ways to torment her mortal son-in-law. Yet behind the scenes, the reality was completely opposite. Agnes Moorehead, who played Endora, found in Dick York a soul she deeply valued. York was not just a co-star, but someone she felt closest to on set. York's sincerity, unique spiritual beliefs, and acting talent made Moorehead, a devoutly religious woman, develop a special bond with him. This relationship created an interesting paradox. The fierce on-screen rivals became close friends in real life. When York suffered a severe back injury and had to leave Bewitched, Moorehead felt the loss deeply. She saw not only a change in the crew, but also the absence of a trusted collaborator who had shared many memorable moments with her throughout the early seasons. When Dick Sargent was brought in as a replacement, Moorehead did not hide her disappointment. During the first script reading, she candidly stated, "I don't like change." 12. Montgomery played two main characters on the show. Elizabeth Montgomery refused to let her career be confined to the image of the perfect witch wife, Samantha Stephens. When she felt the character becoming monotonous, she proactively asked the producers for a new challenge: to portray Serena, her rebellious cousin, who loved partying and causing trouble. If Samantha embodied gentleness and charm, Serena was free-spirited, bold, fashion-forward, and unafraid to break all the rules. This contrast not only enriched Bewitched's storyline, but also allowed Montgomery to showcase her rare versatility. Interestingly, Montgomery did not use her real name when playing Serena, but chose the stage name Pandora Spox, a pun on Pandora's box, hinting at the chaotic world of surprises she would unleash. On the show's credits, many viewers even believed it was a different actress until the truth was revealed. Behind this dual portrayal, Montgomery not only brought to life two contrasting characters in a single series, but also asserted her artistic courage, daring to break out of safety, reinvent herself, and leave a unique mark still admired by critics and audiences today. 11. Supporting actors wore their own clothes and accessories. According to Casey Rogers, who played Louise Tate, the Bewitched set was not as glamorous as many might think. Supporting actors such as Aunt Clara or the nosy neighbour Gladys Kravitz often had to bring their own clothes a week in advance. The wardrobe department would handle dry cleaning and ironing, ensuring everything was perfect on set as if custom prepared for them. Among them, Agnes Moorehead left a lasting impression with her star-shaped brooch, sparkling with 8.5-carat diamonds mined from an old mine. Moorehead often wore it during photo shoots, and the jewellery nearly became her personal signature. Elizabeth Montgomery particularly adored the brooch, frequently marvelling at it when Moorehead wore it. When Agnes Moorehead passed away in 1974, her will specified that the precious brooch should be passed down to her daughter, who later became a familiar face on television. Like a family heirloom, the jewellery carried not only material value, but also the memories and legacy of a legendary actress who helped give Bewitched its soul. 10. Elizabeth Montgomery married director Bill Asher. When Bewitched premiered in 1964, few knew that Elizabeth Montgomery and William Bill Asher were married. Asher was not only Montgomery's husband, but also the show's director and producer. He had already made his mark with I Love Lucy and The Danny Thomas Show, but Bewitched became the pinnacle of his career. A turning point for Montgomery and proof of the creative power of their collaboration in both art and life. Yet, once the cameras stopped rolling, tensions gradually appeared. Working together brought marital conflicts to the surface. Rumours about Asher's extramarital affairs and Montgomery's feelings for director Richard Michaels in later seasons deepened the gap. On several occasions, Montgomery directly requested crew changes for directing certain episodes, threatening to walk away if her demands weren't met, signalling that the marriage had begun to seriously fracture. By 1972, Bewitched concluded after 8 seasons, leaving an indelible mark in American television history. But shortly thereafter, the Hollywood power couple split. In 1973, Montgomery and Asher officially divorced, ending a love both exhilarating and bittersweet, nurtured by artistic collaboration, yet crushed by its weight. After Bewitched, Elizabeth Montgomery devoted herself to more dramatic roles, moving away from the charming witch wife image to assert her versatile acting skills. As for Bill Asher, though he continued in television, he could never replicate the dazzling success of Bewitched. 9. Special effects were extremely creative. In an era without computer-generated effects, Bewitched still convinced audiences that magic was real, a testament to the special effects team led by Richard Dick Albane. He and his colleagues turned even the smallest details into lively magical moments, all created with practical tricks, wires, switches, and ingenuity beyond conventional limits. A famous example is Samantha's vacuum cleaner, which ran around the house on its own. In reality, the crew removed the brushes, installed a reverse motor underneath, and controlled it with a hidden offstage switch. 1960s viewers saw magic. On set, it was meticulous planning down to the smallest detail. Similarly, when Samantha angrily decided to leave, her suitcase flew from the closet, thanks to a technician on scaffolding above pulling strings like a puppet master. If Samantha needed to clean the living room instantly, Elizabeth Montgomery had to stand still, keeping her pose while the director shouted "Cut!" and the crew hurried to clear clothes, newspapers, and clutter in seconds. Once the room was tidy, filming continued, and the audience believed it was magic. Even explosive scenes carried risk. Bernard Fox, who played Dr. Bombay, revealed he was lightly burned multiple times by pyrotechnics used for magical effects. The skill, daring, and minor burns contributed to Bewitched's immortal magic, a vivid testament to the creativity of the pre-digital era. Albain admitted the team always prepared multiple backup plans because if a scene didn't align, the entire crew had to start over, a luxury unheard of with the strict TV shooting schedule. Did you notice these creative effects? Share your thoughts on the show in the comments below. 8. The Bewitched theme song had secret lyrics. The familiar opening tune of Bewitched, which is usually heard as a cheerful instrumental, actually once had a full version with enchanting lyrics. Composer Jack Keller wrote the music, while lyricist Howard Greenfield breathed life into it with playful and charming words, describing the allure of a man bewitched by love. However, the producers ultimately decided to keep the instrumental version for the television opening, considering it more concise, recognizable, and timely. The lyrical version did not disappear entirely. It was recorded by Steve Lawrence in a classic crooner style, turning the familiar melody into a romantic love song. The lyrics, "Bewitched, bewitched, you've got me in your spell, you know your craft so well," captured the very spirit of the show, a blend of magic and romance, of supernatural power and very human emotions. Peggy Lee and other singers also performed it, but Steve Lawrence's rendition became the most remembered. 7. A fashion icon. Bewitched served as a vibrant time capsule, reflecting the evolution of American fashion over more than a decade. When the series premiered in 1964, Samantha Stephens appeared in shift dresses, sweaters, and shirt dresses reminiscent of the 1950s, evoking classic sophistication and elegance. Even while doing household chores, she didn't hesitate to wear jeans, button-down shirts, and keds, portraying a modern, dynamic woman who retained her femininity. As the series progressed into later seasons, Samantha's wardrobe changed noticeably, reflecting early 1960s trends and moving into the 1970s. Shift dresses, mini skirts, bolder patterns, and vibrant colours appeared frequently, adding youthfulness and energy to the character. In some episodes, Samantha even transformed into high-fashion personas inspired by Parisian style, showing that the production team was not afraid to experiment and innovate. Bewitched became a miniature fashion museum, allowing audiences to track style evolution over 8 seasons. The show not only delivered magic on screen, but also served as a fashion inspiration, preserving decades of trends, from classic cinched waist dresses to short, colourful, bold designs, reflecting the relentless creativity of the costume designers behind the scenes. 6. Montgomery owned 20% of the show. After 5 seasons of working on Bewitched, Elizabeth Montgomery once considered leaving. She had grown tired of playing Samantha Stephens and wanted a new challenge. However, ABC was not ready to let their biggest star walk away. According to author Herbie J. Pilato, the network made an offer so lucrative that Montgomery couldn't refuse, forcing her to reconsider. The deal not only kept her attached to the show, but also elevated her status within the production team. During negotiations, Montgomery and her husband, director William Asher, founded Ashmont Productions, the company behind Bewitched from the mid-1960s. This strategic move made Montgomery not just a face on screen, but one of the actual owners of the show, a rarity for actresses at the time, when production power was usually held by studios and male executives behind the scenes. By the end of the 8th season, Montgomery reportedly owned up to 20% of Bewitched. This meant that whenever the show was rebroadcast, a common phenomenon for decades, she received a portion of the profits worth millions of dollars from royalties, even when she was no longer in front of the camera. 5. Multiple networks tried to remake Bewitched. Over the decades since Bewitched ended, Hollywood continuously attempted to revive this television icon. In 2011, CBS commissioned a remake script from screenwriter Mark Lawrence, produced by Douglas Wick and Lucy Fisher, the duo behind the 2005 Bewitched film. However, the project never moved beyond the script stage, leaving questions about whether Samantha and Darren could still captivate 21st century audiences. 3 years later, NBC took another shot with a bold idea, a follow-up series focused on Daphne, Samantha's granddaughter. The script was handled by Abby Cohn and Mark Silverstein, familiar writers of romantic comedies. NBC even committed to producing a pilot, but the project quickly faded into obscurity, showing that Bewitched's legacy could be a double-edged sword, both enticing and scrutinized. By 2018, ABC made a bigger gamble with a modern version written by Kenya Barris, Blackish, and Yamara Taylor. This reboot explored racial differences. Samantha was rewritten as a black single witch married to a white man, reflecting contemporary social issues. Despite generating strong curiosity, ABC ultimately froze the project due to an unsatisfactory script. 4. Moorehead was cast as Endora after a chance encounter with Montgomery. An interesting anecdote surrounds how Agnes Moorehead was cast as Endora in Bewitched. Elizabeth Montgomery reportedly ran into the Oscar-nominated actress at Bloomingdale's department store. Montgomery asked if Moorehead had ever considered working in television. Moorehead simply smiled and replied ambiguously, "Maybe, maybe not." By 1964, Agnes Moorehead was officially chosen to play Endora, Samantha Stephens' sharp-witted witch mother-in-law. This marked a major turning point in her career, as Moorehead had never planned to do long-term television work. Previously, she was renowned on stage and screen, known for serious roles and frequent award nominations. Bewitched changed everything. Endora quickly became a television icon, commanding, sharp, yet witty and charming. 3. Richard Crenna almost played Darren. From the earliest days of planning a Bewitched, casting Darren Stephens became an intense behind-the-scenes hunt. Initially, Dick Sargent was the top candidate but had to decline due to a contract with another sitcom, Broadside. When that door seemingly closed, Richard Crenna was considered. Having just made a splash with The Real McCoys, he seemed a promising choice to pair with Elizabeth Montgomery on screen. However, having spent many years on long-running series, Crenna was not ready to commit to a new project. He declined the offer, paving the way for another actor to step into television history. Dick York, an actor with a solid footing in film and Broadway, especially noted for his performance in They Came to Cordura. 3. The meaningful name Tabitha. Do you remember the name Tabitha? Though seemingly a minor detail in Bewitched, it carried an interesting and dramatic story. Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Samantha, insisted on naming the daughter in the show Tabitha, as she felt the name had a classic, mysterious, and unusual charm. Few knew that the inspiration came from real life, the daughter of actor Edward Andrews. By incorporating a real-life name, Tabitha became more than just a fictional character. She carried a trace of reality. But the story didn't end there. When Tabitha first appeared, the show's credits mistakenly spelled it Tabitha. One tiny letter, yet it infuriated Montgomery, making her deeply upset. For her, correcting the error was not just technical, it was a matter of honor. The letter battle continued for multiple seasons, and finally, after much struggle, Montgomery won. Starting from season 5, Tabitha was standardized across all scripts, credits, and official documents. Even more surprisingly, the name Tabitha quickly became a cultural phenomenon. Many American parents in the 1970s and 1980s began naming their daughters after the character in Bewitched. 2. Marion Lawn. Aunt Clara collected antique doorknobs. Marion Lawn, who brought the lovable but clumsy Aunt Clara to life in Bewitched, added a very real detail to her character, a passion for collecting antique doorknobs. In real life, Lorne owned over 1,000 doorknobs of various shapes and materials, hunted from all over. Many props in the show came directly from her quirky collection, making Aunt Clara and her doorknobs even more authentic and charming. 1. Tammy Grimes almost became Samantha Tammy Grimes, the Broadway star who won a Tony for the unsinkable Molly Brown in 1961, nearly became the witch Samantha in Bewitched. At the time, the main character was still called Cassandra, and Grimes was Screen Gem's first choice for the role. The studio believed her fame would bring instant appeal from the very first episode. However, Grimes saw issues with the script. She openly questioned, if the character had supernatural powers, why focus only on the kitchen and living room? Why not use magic to stop wars or solve Los Angeles traffic problems? These idealistic questions led to an impasse with the production team. Unable to reach an agreement, Grimes declined the role and returned to Broadway to star in High Spirits. More than half a century later, the behind-the-scenes secrets, real-life shocks, and seemingly small details of Bewitched still amaze audiences. From Elizabeth Montgomery playing 2 characters, Agnes Moorehead's chance casting as Endora, Alice Pierce's tragedy, to the ingenious handcrafted special effects, all created a magical, dramatic world that left an enduring mark on American television history. What about you? Among these 20 facts, which surprised, delighted, or even moved you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to continue exploring fascinating behind-the-scenes stories from classic films, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss any of the fun. Thank you for joining us.